friends, my name is Justine, I'm the Mermaid Seamstress, and today I want to discuss strategies for designing your mermaid tail. So this video is going to be 10 tips and tricks that I have accumulated over my time as a mermaid for how I go about designing the tails that I make. So stay tuned, don't forget to like this video, comment down below if you have any tips of your own, and subscribe so that you never miss another one of my awesome mermaid videos. I make tutorials, I make swim videos, and I make a lot of things in between. But for now, let's get started on how I design my mermaid tail. Tip number 1 is to collect inspiration and keep it in one place. If you see something that totally inspires you, cut it out of the newspaper, clip it out of a magazine, take a screenshot of it, do something and save it somewhere so that you have it to reference when you're trying to pull ideas out of your head. My favorite thing to do is to use Pinterest and to use, I used to have like a binder, like a physical binder full of fabric swatches, poems, playlists that I collect. If I have a particular tone of a mermaid tail that I have in mind, I might have like a deep sea, like dark siren playlist, or like a happy whimsical playlist. I don't know, I'm a weird person that I can, listen to while I'm making that tail or designing that tail that kind of puts me in that mood or mindset. I also think about like what kind of environment does this mermaid live in? What are the fish that are around this? Are there fish that you find particularly inspiring? Are there tail shapes that you find particularly inspiring? I had at one point like a friend going through my photos, and she was like, why do you have so many pictures of this fish tail? Like, that's so weird. Tip number 2, sketch out your designs. That seems kind of obvious, but like if you don't know where you're gonna go with a design, try sketching out a design or 2 or 3 or 5. It's no problem if you need to kind of process like, okay, I think I want the fins here, but I'm not sure if I want the fins here or here. Like, sketch it out both ways. Try and visualize that. If you're a digital artist, try and, do it digitally. If you're just a really poor artist and you feel like you can't draw anything, at the very least you can make a list for yourself saying like, I would like to incorporate hip fins or a dorsal fin, or I would like to have a single seam down the back as opposed to 2 seams down the sides. Just make a list for yourself, some way to mentally note what your ideas are and how those ideas are changing. Tip number 3 is to let those ideas sit. Let your design sit for a while. If you're feeling really frustrated and you feel like nothing is working, just put it down and walk away. This could be for a day, a month, a year. I have some designs that I put aside a long time ago and I found 6 years later and felt really inspired by them all of a sudden. Now, obviously I, made little changes and that really helps me a lot when I'm making designs that are more complicated or if I really want a specific look in mind. Tip number 4, now that you're seriously considering your designs, it's time to look at how you want your tail to function. What are you going to use it for? Are you going to use it for land gigs? Are you going to use it for swimming? Do you want to use it for tank work? Do you care if it has a lot of extra fins and therefore a lot of extra drag, or do you want it to be really fast and sleek? These are things to keep in mind while you're thinking through your design, and to think about, the shape of your monofin. What monofin are you going to use? Are you going to use the one that you already have? Do you need to buy a new one? Do you need to modify an existing monofin? Does that mean adding, vinyl pockets like the FinalCut fabric tails to modify the shape? Who knows? But like, those are things to keep in mind when you're designing the shape, is the functionality of the fin and what purpose you want it to serve. Tip number 5, test your materials. Test your paint, test your fabric, test your stitches, test your sewing machine, test your sewing needles. Test all of those things and learn what the capacities of those mediums are. How durable are they? What are they best used for? Those kinds of things. Right along with testing is tip number 6, and that is test your pattern. If I am using a brand new type of fabric that I've never used before, that is a lot more or a lot less stretchy than the fabric that I'm used to using, I test my pattern out. I make sure that I have my calculations right so that when that fabric stretches, the pattern is going to be right before I commit to sewing or cutting it out even. It's leaving yourself a big enough seam allowance. If you need to cut out your fabric in order to work with it, leaving yourself a big enough seam allowance where you can let it out or take it in. It's easy to take in fabric. The hard part is if you make it too tight and you need to let it out, you need to leave that seam allowance so that you have the possibility of doing that. And another tip that goes along with that is making sure that you baste that before you actually sew it. If you sew a triple stitch and have to rip out, a whole seam's worth of triple stitches, that can be very time consuming and very time wasting and very frustrating for you. So if you do it, in a loose zigzag or a really loose straight stitch just to try it on, that's great. And then you can go back and triple stitch it when you know it fits you. Tip number 7, do your research. You have all of these wonderful ideas floating around in your head, but if you don't know how you're going to execute those ideas, that can be very, very frustrating. I often turn to other YouTube tutorials, or they can be in a totally unrelated subject. I did one of my best tails because I had a basic idea of what I wanted, and I researched applique, and applique methods are hardly ever used on stretch fabric. They're usually used in like quilting and things like that. And I tried an applique method, and it turned out that I needed to modify it for stretch fabric, but I wouldn't have come up with that if I hadn't done my research, watching tutorials, watching YouTube videos, watching how other people have solved the challenges and how they have troubleshooted challenges that they ran into when making their own designs a reality. Are they using similar techniques to the ones that you want to use? You can always modify it to fit your tail making preference. So give that a whirl and see what other people have done before you. Tip number 8 that I have is giving yourself plenty of time, especially if this is your first time and you're trying a bunch of new things. You want to give yourself plenty of time so that you don't feel rushed or pressured into cutting corners. Quality work takes time, and it takes energy, and it takes the ability to step back a little bit and problem solve through whatever challenges you might be having. And you will be able to problem solve. Given enough time, you will be able to problem solve some solution to the problem you're having. I've made the mistake before of cutting corners because I didn't think I had enough time to finish a project. It cost me in time when I've made mistakes that way. I lost focus and I sewed something in backwards, and then I wasted all my time, ripping out that seam and having to turn it inside out. I've wasted fabric before making a design that didn't work. And having to cut it up and redo it. And I've wasted whole tails worth of material before, and energy and time and resources making a tail that didn't fit me just because I cut corners and was too concerned about a limited period of time to make that tail, and that can really cost you. So make sure to give yourself enough time to be creative. Tip number 9 I have is to try something new. Don't be afraid to try something new. As I said when I was talking about, looking at other people's work, if you have an idea of how you could possibly do something, but you've never tried it before, you feel like you want to try something new, try something new, try something that nobody's ever done before. You could be the first person to have come up with this, or to have popularized this, or to have figured this out on your own. And that can be such a rewarding moment. One of my best tails and the proudest tail that I've ever made was the tail nymph that I made for the Mermaid Harpist, and a lot of those things, a lot of the strategies that I used making that tail came out of the fact that I was flying by the seat of my pants and I was trying something new. And tip number 10 is don't compare yourself to others. It can be really hard when you see a tail that you really wish that you had made, and to go ahead and just copy that makes it not your own. It's a copied piece of work. Making something that's completely your own can be so rewarding and so motivating. It's one of my favorite feelings, having the pride that like I made that and I designed that. It can be really helpful, and that's why I say inspiration and collecting a lot of inspiration, because if you the more inspiration you collect, the more the idea is your original interpretation of that collective inspiration and less somebody's identical work. So I hope you guys found these tips helpful. These are the things that I think about when I'm designing my tails. And if you want more tips and advice and tutorials on how to design tails, you can check out my tips and tricks playlist, as well as my workshop playlist, linked in the description box below and at the end of this video. Also, if you have any comments or questions or concerns about anything you've seen, or just want to share a reflection with me or your experience, please leave that in the comments box below. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe to let me know that you liked it and you wanted to see more, and I will see you all in my next video. Happy swimming. Bye, fish friends.